It's about being able to create and fulfill on what you create. So create a vision and then fulfill on that vision.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauparlant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm joined by Josselyne Herman-Saccio. She's a speaker, coach, and host of the Be Unmessablewith podcast. Josselyne has spent more than 3 decades leading transformative programs, coaching over 200,000 people across every walk of life, from executives and thought leaders to artists, athletes, and activists. She's also the founder of United Global Shift, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering leaders around the world to create change that lasts. Through her high-performance coaching, Josselyne helps people stay grounded in vision, lead with intention, and become truly unmessable with. Josselyne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for this conversation. We got introduced by a mutual friend, and I'm like, anybody Jennifer refers me to has always been an amazing human.
She is the super connector of all times. Half my podcast episodes are like, and I met you through Jen,
Funny how that happens. Yeah. I think everybody needs a good super connector in their life.
Yes, I agree.
So I'd love to start with your signature phrase, your business name, this unmessable with term. I want to know, where did that come from? What does that mean to you? And how do you see that helping entrepreneurs and leaders so that they can really embody this idea?
Well, where it came from was I was leading transformative programs like 25 years ago, and I was on a call with other leaders. And the person who was leading the call, who recently passed away, but he was one of my mentors, really love this man named Richard Condon. He was talking to someone else and he said, you're so messable with. And that just sparked something in my brain. I was like, okay, unmessable with is what I want to give people the power to be. And that was in my early 20s, really. And I just started kind of building a world around it. And here we are. So it doesn't mean being tough, though. Sometimes people think it means being tough or not feeling your feelings or muscling through. And that really isn't what it is. It's about being able to create and fulfill on what you create. So create a vision and then fulfill on that vision, and not getting hooked or stopped or sidetracked or derailed. So that really is what it means.
I love it. And I think there are so many things that kind of mess with us along the way. They mess with our heads, mess with our plans, whether it's something society or tariffs, politics, pandemics, whatever it is. But sometimes it's just our own head. So what do you find in the work that you've done? You've worked with people from different backgrounds and industries and stations in life. What do you find are common ways that people get messed with?
Well, a lot of it has to do with our shoulds, our shouldn'ts. The obvious things, fear, time, money. Those things mess with people. But the everyday things are a little bit more insidious and a little bit more detrimental because you don't notice them as much. And so you end up in this world of being messable with, thinking it's just reality, and it's not. So when you have limiting beliefs, when you have something that you think should be a certain way or shouldn't be a certain way, that's an example of being in what I call the world of reaction versus the world of creation. And anytime you're in the world of reaction, even good reactions, I would say, is an example of you being messable with, because you're not dealing with reality and what you're creating. You're dealing with your opinion about reality, or your good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't about reality. And it sends you into a mode where you're just not available for not only the miracles and the magic of life, but even just real stuff, like what's actually happening. You get disconnected from reality in that world. So when I work, especially with business owners and founders, so much of the world is my team should be operating at a higher level, or they shouldn't expect me to be on these calls, or I shouldn't have to work 80 hours a week, or I should have more free time, or whatever, all that, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, that's a big one that messes with people.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And how do you find, like, what are some tools that you use, or is there like something you could share that might help them get back into that alignment, or to even just realize or acknowledge, oh, this is actually messing with me?
I mean, it's so funny. I was talking to a master coach yesterday who was so reactivated about something. And I was like, what are you so reactivated about? And she was like, well, he shouldn't be doing this and da da da. I said, you need my instant reset. I have like a freebie on my website where people can literally do a 5-step process. They have a cheat sheet. It's very simple. But how do you, first of all, be aware when you're messable with? And she's a very aware person. She's like a high level, trained, transformative person. But she said what is so amazing to her yesterday after she started practicing the hack is that she spends like 99% of her time in reaction. She didn't realize it. Like the big reactions she would see, but not just sitting on a plane and somebody's chewing loud next to her and she starts to go crazy, like in her head. And you might not show it, but that's tolerating something or trying to like survive, which is a good analogy for the world of reaction, is like you're surviving. You're trying to get through that meeting or get through that situation and deal with it. And what happens for people is that is like putting icing on mud, calling it a cake. So they're trying to get out of it from the same part of your brain that's creating it. So it's a little bit crazy. So what you have to do is, first of all, you have to be aware. And one thing that I give people to notice when they're going down that road of being messable with is, if you look for yourself anytime in your life where you reacted to something, there's a physical manifestation of that reaction. So I call that a
Yeah.
red flag. It could be, I don't know, for me, it's a tight chest. What is it for you when you get into that world?
It's definitely a stomach or in my throat. Like might depend on what it is.
Yeah, but you can see the physical stuff a little bit quicker than you can see the rationale for the physical stuff. So I tell people to look for the physical red flag because that happens literally like a nanosecond before the mental part of it. Like the shoulds and shouldn'ts come just after the tight throat. And you can feel a tight throat and you can notice it a lot easier. So I tell people to look for the red flags and then create a physical hack to interrupt those brain patterns, because what's actually happening when you're in reaction mode is your brain is being hijacked, right? The amygdala gets hijacked and you're in fight, flight, flee mode, and you end up, you're not even home at that point, you're just on auto mode, right? You're just reacting
Yeah.
automatically. And it's even the good reactions, like something happens and you go, oh, that was good, and you're reacting and you're not creating anymore. So I have people do something physical to interrupt the physicalness of what's happening in your brain and reroute your brain to the prefrontal cortex, which is where creative thought can happen. So people have done things like, what have they created? Like snapping their fingers or tapping. They could use tapping. If you're on a Zoom call, tap your legs so they don't see you doing it, or stretch. It's got to be something that is an interrupter, though. It can't be like just breathe, because people are already breathing and it's not going to be
Hmm.
enough of an interruption unless it's box breathing and doing, there's certain kind of breathing you can do, or get up and walk outside, but you can't always do that when you're in the midst of a situation. So I like to keep it simple and short and physical, and that gets you to neutral. And this was what my friend, the thought leader that I was telling you about, was finding. She would get herself to neutral, but then she'd go right back to that world of reaction because you have nothing else to go to. And that's the
Right.
problem with most mindset coaches and most methodologies, is it's like, okay, they'll get you relief. You get out of the soup for a moment, but because of the muscle memory of that reaction mode, you end up right back in it. So it's a constant sort of trying to get relief from, that's what people, a lot of times, not everybody, but when they meditate, it's like to relieve the chaos rather than being able to live from that space, which is a very different thing. It's a different level of mastery with those kind of practices. So once you get to neutral, what's critical is that you have a pre-created space to go to that is not in the world of reaction. So I call that your vision. So when I work with entrepreneurs and founders, the first thing I do is ask them their vision. And unfortunately, Laura, I got to tell you, most people don't know what that is. They give me a goal. well, I want to sell my business in 5 years. That's not a vision. That's a goal. And goals, while they're important, and you and I work inside of goals, I'm sure a lot, it's not the context of why do you even have that goal? What is the point of that goal? What is the spatial experience that you're committed to that you think accomplishing that goal will allow for? And once people can craft that, then that's fulfillable at any moment, even before they sell their business, even before they get off the plane with the guy who's chewing, they can actually fulfill on their vision at that moment. So I work with people, that's why they call me sometimes a vision architect, because I work with people primarily on crafting a vision to have as a pre-created space to go to once they get to neutral. Now, that was a lot of words.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think the people I work with and listening are often, they're founders, they're in a state of transition. They're maybe selling business, they're maybe shifting their identity. They are trying to figure out that what's next. And I think you're right. This idea, this dream, or they're like, oh, I should want to sell my business and I should get this much, but then but why? Like, and what are you going to do once you do that? And so I think painting that picture of it, what is the freedom? What is the feeling? What are you going to do? Who are you going to spend your time with? Like, what is that purpose that you maybe want to step into? And that's more vision as opposed to the goal of selling the business. But what is the vision that that will lead to?
Even saying who are you going to spend your time with or what are you going to do is something that's going to happen in reality. And vision, when I work with people, is more of a contextual phenomenon. So I'll give you an example. If I hold my finger up right now, right, for those of you that are just listening and can't see this, I'm holding the finger, and I say to you in the context body part, what is it? You're going to tell me finger, right? I mean, it's not like complex. You're just going to look at it, it's a finger. But if I shift the context and I say, okay, but in the context number, what is it? What would you say?
One.
And it's the same thing in reality, right? The same content. And then if I go, okay, new context, direction, what is it?
Up.
But nothing's altered in reality. The context is decisive, and the context lives in language, not in reality. So what you're doing is content. Who you're with is content. Where you live is content. The context is decisive in terms of your experience of life. So let's bring it back to the founders, right? If you're working and the context in which you're working is, I just got to get through the next 5 years so I can exit, you're not going to have the most powerful experience for those 5 years. And that's 5 years of your life. You could die by the time 5 years is up. So it's kind of like getting through something. Or if you're like a lot of people, what happens is they start their companies and it's very much in that space of vision or creation. But then at some point, it becomes a thing to manage. And we've all had that experience, not just in business, but in relationships. Like in the beginning of a relationship, it's so magical. It's so what, and then it's like a thing that you have to deal with and manage, and who's going to Costco and who's doing this and who's, it becomes something to manage. And anytime something you create becomes a thing, it shifts from the world of creation to the world of management and reaction. And there's no magic in management. There might be accomplishing goals and being successful. And all the people I work with are very successful, but they're not fulfilled. And fulfillment lives in that space of vision, not content, but the context of what they really want. So when I work with, like, for instance, actors, let's say, and they have a goal of, I just want to book a Broadway show, whatever, right? They book the Broadway show, but then there's the next thing they want. Oh no, but now it's really a movie I want. Oh no, it's a TV show. Oh, there's always a next carrot. And it happens for business owners too. It's like, I just want to do 6 figures. I just want to do 7 figures. I just want to do 8 figures. If I could just do an exit plan. I mean, it's always like chasing something, right? But if I really get into it with them and I say, okay, but what's going to be available to you if you win that Academy Award? What is the space that you're committed to? And they'll say, well, then I can pick and choose my projects. Okay, let's say you were able to do that. Now what? What's the experience of life that you really want? That's what people really want. They don't want the money. They don't want the goals. I mean, that all makes it easier, but it's not really what they want. They want the space, and then they'll inevitably get to something like freedom or self-expression or fulfillment or joy or something. And that's the vision. So the vision lives in an experiential, spatial kind of phenomenon rather than I'm going to do this or I'm going to be here, or I'm going to have this, like that.
So is it a feeling?
Feelings and experiences are a little different. So feelings happen in your body, right?
Yeah.
You have a feeling in your body. Like the red flag is a feeling in your body for sure.
Yeah.
Experience is beyond your body. It's more, and it's hard to talk about because it's kind of like a non-dual space kind of thing. So it's out here and it includes you, but it's not about you. So if your vision is fulfillment, yes, it's about you being fulfilled, but it's not about you feeling fulfilled. That's different. That's like a dopamine hit. The experience of fulfillment includes other people. So if my vision is fulfillment, and it is fulfillment and freedom, it's about you being fulfilled and free. It's about my clients being fulfilled. It includes me, but it's not about me. If it's your feelings in your body, then it's limited to you.
Yeah. And I think it's an important distinction. And this idea of creation versus sort of that, what do you got? Like the logistics side, the management
Yeah.
side
And
is,
and companies become things to manage.
they do. I think we all start them with this vision, this creation. And most entrepreneurs start a business. I think a lot of us are good at starting, but then it's like, oh, I don't really want to do this thing. Or you start a business because you love doing X, Y, and Z. And then you end up doing very little of that thing that you love because you're busy managing the business.
And that's one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs need to learn to give away, and they're horrible at, is delegating and creating systems so that you can design your company to be deleted. So you're deleted.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the selling a business, it's a really important part. Something that we help people with is we help founders build a personal brand for them that is separate from but aligned with the business that they get to take with them. That is who they are, that is what they believe in, who they want to be and how they want to show up in the world. And it's not their personal identity isn't as tied to the business. So then the goal is that when you do sell, it's easier to extract yourself. You're not selling yourself as much because you are less deeply intertwined with the day to day of the business.
Yeah, and how I would relate that to the work that I do is like you have the vision, but then you have vehicles. Your company is a vehicle to fulfill your vision. You happen to be in the coaching business, or you happen to be in the widget business, or you happen to be in the hotel business, but that's not who you are. Your vision is more the space of who you really are, or your personal brand, as from what you're saying. That's overarching. You bring that to your family, you bring it to your well-being, you can bring it to your vacationing, you can bring it to whatever projects that you ever do for the rest of your life. So people get fixated on the vehicle, and I have to pry their vision and then keep their eye on it, because your vision will give you a different experience than working on a thing called a vehicle.
Yeah. So, what do you find like the people that are listening that are maybe like having this realization, like, I have these goals, but I don't really have a vision? What could they do? I know you've got a resource that they can take to help them when they're in that reaction space, but like, do you even have some tips to help them start to get clear on a vision for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I just did. I would ask questions like, okay, so what's my immediate goal? Fine. Now, if that happened, what would be available experientially? And then if they answer that question like it's another goal being met, something that's going to happen, say, okay, now let's say that's happening. Now what's available? And keep going until you get to an actual experience. In fact, I have a TED talk that I did that does this and kind of talks about what I call a dream source, which is not your goal like a dream, but the source of your dreams. And there's a couple ways you could go at it. You could do it from the future, like I was just doing. If that goal got met, then what would be available experientially? Or you can go to the past. You can go back to a moment when you were 3 or 4 and you were just jamming on something, just having, maybe you were playing with dolls, maybe you were singing, maybe you were swimming, whatever it was. What was the experience that has that be like a silver box moment for you? And that can also kind of get you in the world of vision. I have a ton of resources though. I mean, I have vision workshops on YouTube. I have the I mean, I've got instant reset hack things. I mean, I've got everything you can imagine, including some like low price paid stuff just to get you there, but tons of free stuff.
We will make sure to share all the links we can in the show notes for this. I love that. I definitely want to check out your TED Talk too. I think that sounds Amazing. I love this whole conversation because I think we do get stuck in the day to day. We get stuck in the logistics and the management, and it's easy to go through the motions and kind of wake up one day and go, what happened to that idea, that spark that started this for me? Speaking as an entrepreneur, I think we start our businesses with that. And then somewhere along the way, and it's magical.
Even you're failing, you're succeeding, you're failing. You don't even know what you're doing. It doesn't matter. It's so enlivening. And then at some point, you have to have that thing that you created survive. And that's when it goes into that world of survival. I mean, because it is something like you got to meet payroll. And when you were starting, it wasn't like that. And it's the same thing in a relationship. So obviously, I work with people in their businesses, but it almost always ends up we talk about their relationships.
Yeah.
And people stop creating what they're creating. They create, and then it becomes something they created, which is a thing that has to survive. Same thing with their marriages. It's like anything where the magic is gone, you stopped creating it, period. And it doesn't mean you have a bad company or a bad marriage. Your marriage is fine. It's just not magical anymore.
Are there ways to get back that magic, do you find?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this whole hacking thing. So, you see the red flag, you hack it. You have to have a vision, though. If you don't have the vision, it all falls apart because that's the alternative road. If you don't have an alternative road, you end up back in the muscle memory road because that road's paved and has an Arby's on it and a McDonald's and gas station. It's much easier to go down that road. It's like
all the creature comforts.
exactly. Yeah. It's just the better the devil, and it takes less effort. It takes conscious discipline and design to live in the world of creation. And you're building a muscle that's pretty much atrophied because we so rarely are creating. We're mostly reacting. Now, we think we're creating, but if we really look, like my friend that I was telling you about, she was just shocked how much of the day was spent reacting to things, even before they happened. Like just having a lens for somebody like, oh God, this guy. And then, it's just going to set you off. Even a good lens is still a lens. So how do you be with things the way they are and create from nothing? And you can only create from nothing. And most people don't spend a lot of time in nothing. They're always dealing with something.
Yeah. It makes me think of this. I just wrote a blog post recently called Courage Over Comfort. And I just was on a trip to Papua New Guinea with a group of entrepreneurs in the kind of the wilds of Papua New Guinea. And we were all gifted a hat that had embroidered on it, Courage Over Comfort.
Beautiful.
And it was such a beautiful reminder that it's an illusion that comfort is easier than courage.
It's deadening. I mean,
Yeah.
That's really what it is. When people are exhausted, and that's a lot of what happens for founders is they get burnt out. They're just not, they don't feel free. They're in the prison of their own creation. They build this empire. They're successful, but they're just trapped. One of the things that for myself, that I've discovered for myself, a way out, and that's all I want to do is have people get the way out so that they can live a created life. But it's not like, oh, I'm going to create my life now and then it's created. No, it's got to be like every moment creating, and now and now and now and now, and then you die. Either way, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're either going to die kind of unfulfilled or alive. I'd rather die alive.
Absolutely. And actually, I have a keynote called A Life Worth Dying For.
Oh, that's great.
And it's about, if I'm trading today for what I'm doing and who I'm spending it with, is it worth it? Is it worth trading it? And it's this idea of creating this life that is worth trading your time for. So when you do get to the end, you're like, yeah, I really lived my life.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the heart of fulfillment, and why people aren't fulfilled is they're trying to get to someday, and there is no such thing.
Exactly. So this idea vision, this vision, it's not just an idea, it's a thing.
Distinction. You said distinction. I think that's a good word for it. That's what I would call it.
Yeah. So are there things that you notice are commonplace? Is it freedom? Is it fulfillment? Is there things that you've seen and all the people you've worked with that are common things that come up time and time again?
Definitely, connection is one, freedom, peace, joy, aliveness, grace is a new one that's coming up. Love is one for sure. Happiness is, I know they sound corny, but there's a reason they sound corny. It's what people really want ultimately at the end of the day. It's satisfaction, aliveness, those are pretty like the top 10 probably, if or however many,
Yeah.
it's a spatial thing. So there's no right word. It's kind of like whatever your thing is. I have somebody who was like, oh, I can't remember what they said, but it was like razzmatazz or something like that. I was like, fine, whatever. You get to create it, and it's etched in sand. You can always create something new.
Yeah, I love that. It really feels like you're on a mission. Like you seem very clear on the impact that you want to create for yourself, but also for everybody that you work with. And this is called the Legacy Branding Podcast. So I always ask people about legacy and how do you define legacy and what does that mean to you? What is the legacy you're hoping to create for yourself?
Well, I think it's funny because the third year of my mastery program is about legacy and impact. So when I heard the name of your show, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Because I think it really is the difference you make is, at least for me, the legacy I'm going to leave is not a house or whatever. It's going to be the impact I had on people. And I've been in transformation since I was 11. And that's 47 years of being in this conversation of transformation, because I did my first transformative program at 11. Then I started leading transformative programs at 18 and coaching people. I mean, for a really long time. I mean, this is like I'll be 58. So it's my whole life
This is your life. Yeah.
this is my life's work, and I love my life, but it's not different to me. Work and life is the same thing. So when people go, oh, I want an exit plan, it's like, exit from what? From making a difference? I can't imagine. I mean, I'm out to dinner with somebody, I'm going to listen for how I can make a difference for them, so it's the context is decisive. So if you have a vision and you're focused on the vision, not the vehicle, you don't have to worry about, you're going to be doing that for as long as you do it. You don't have to worry about, I got to get out of it so I can live my life. No, you're fulfilling on your life's purpose every day, whether it's at that vehicle or that vehicle or that vehicle. So the vision, I think, for people, when they aren't clear about that, it's one of the biggest sticking points that keeps them unfulfilled and burnt out.
And maybe their business is still the thing. Maybe they don't need to exit.
Exactly. I mean, I work 12 hours a week. I used to work 80 hours a week, and I thought you had to work like that to be able to be living a life worth living, like you say. And I had, a million things I was doing, and it was all like, and I was exhausted, but it was all in the name of the cause. It doesn't have to look like that. That's what I'm committed to for people, not just entrepreneurs, but for all people, that you can have freedom, you can master creation, you can master performance, and you don't have to do it all to have it all. That's, I think, a big thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people want to sell their business. They want the exit because they want to actually do the thing that is meaningful, that is the impact they want to have, because they've realized that their business is not, it is fulfilled, maybe the money piece, the wealth piece, but they're burnt out. It doesn't align with them. They're only in management mode. Maybe they started it with a vision, but it is no longer that. And in order to really have the impact and create the legacy, the only way for them to do that and to work in a way that it feels like they want to do it forever. Right. My husband and I often talk about the fact that we don't have this vision of retirement. Like,
no, this is what it looks like. But because I'm the designer of my life, and it's all coming from the same vision. And I think when I work with companies, one of the biggest things that's missing with the teams, because so many people are burnt out or quiet quitting, or the turnover and retention is such an issue, is owners or CEOs aren't tapping into their people's vision either. So if they're not connected to their vision, they're not listening for other people's vision. And if people can see working at your company as an access to fulfill their vision, their personal vision in life, not their vision for your company, it's your company, it's going to be different for you. But if they have a vision of freedom or fulfillment, and they can see being your CFO as an opportunity to fulfill on that, you'll have people that'll be with you forever. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. So I think it's important to not only distinguish what matters to you in terms of vision, so that you cannot be so focused on the vehicle, but more, what are you fulfilling on with the vehicles? And I've had people, like I had this guy once, this is not a CEO, he had a job at a juice company, and he was burnt out, and he was asking me for coaching about, what should I do? I got to get out of this job, it's horrible, they're always asking me about quotas, blah 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 blah. And I said, well, why did you start working at this juice company? Like, what was the deal? Well, originally I thought I could really make an impact on people's well-being. So that was sort of like, well-being was his vision, health, vitality, well-being. And I got him just reconnected to that. And he went back to work, and it was like all of a sudden, he wasn't selling juice. He was empowering people's well-being. And he sold more juice that week than he had in 3 years. In 1 week, the context altered. And now all of a sudden, he's fulfilling on a bigger game rather than hawking juice. Maybe people who want to leave their company, they're just disconnected from their vision. And I'm not saying stay in your, whatever. I'm not even saying work as much as you do. In fact, I want you to work less. That's one of the intentions I have out of working with people, because I work less. So if I can do it, why can't you? But at the same time, the drive to get out might be able to be transformed through that contextual shift.
I love it. I think you are just a wealth of resources. I have loved this conversation. I would love for you to share how people can connect with you. If people want to work with you, they want to become unmessable with, what is the way they can learn from you, work with you, connect with you?
Well, I'm everywhere, but the easiest way to get to me is my website, and I have a freebie page. So if you want to just taste my stuff, go to giftfromjoss, JOSS.com, Gift from Joss, and you'll find a bunch of different free things. But from there, you can go find out about the podcast, you can find out about the Instagram, whatever, all the things, or you could book a discovery call with me, whatever it is. But I would first do some free stuff just to see if I'm somebody's cup of tea. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, because I'm very straight and I don't BS and I don't coddle and I'm not like a hand holder. I'm like, if you want to get to what I'm talking about fast, then you work with me. But if you want to be kind of like fluffed, no, not for me. No. Pas pour moi. Pas pour moi.
I love it, because there's too many times people are trying to be everything to everybody and be people pleasers. And I love that you're very clear. And I believe that as entrepreneurs, you should have not always be super polarizing, but you want people to be like, hell yes, you're the person for me, or nope, I'm out. Because if they're indifferent, you've lost them all.
Yeah, and I'm not the right person for somebody who's indifferent. Like, I know I'm not the right person for everybody, and that's okay. There's enough people.
Exactly. There's the right person out there for everybody.
That's right. And I just want people to be empowered. So if anything that I have is empowering, fabulous, you know. If it's not, click off, right?
Exactly. What a way to end it. Thank you so much for being here, Josselyne. I love this conversation.
It was great. It was great to meet you, and I'll look forward to having you on my show.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauperlant.